be interested in AI, be interested in talking to a data scientist about what we could do with the data that was available. The reason this was also important, and something you could jot down if you are an artist, is that they had just open sourced a huge data set of art from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, something like 4 million images. So it created an opportunity, obviously, for us to join forces. But it was kind of like that awkward high school dance, right? Where you have like data scientists on one side and curators on the other, and everyone's kind of looking around, wondering how it was going to all work out. But it was a beautiful experience. It was something that I now encourage. Really, if I'm as a data scientist, as someone who I have experience building models, when I solve a problem now, I don't feel like I'm in the right place if I don't have people who actually have the pain of what I'm trying to solve. If they're not in the room, if my subject matter experts are only machine learning or data scientists, I feel like I'm not going to get there. I need people, which is why I joined NPR, right? I wanted to do that for media. I wanted to be able to go to the newsroom and say, what's your pain? And oh my gosh, there's a data set for that, and we could solve this problem. So that's kind of where I got to where, how I got to where I am today. Last year, I also got quite a few awards, which was exciting. I won't spend a lot of time here because it kind of makes me, feel weird looking at this page. But you should know, I was like the Executive of the Year at the Alexa conference last year. I got this really cute Ninja Cat award from Microsoft on creating clarity, which is a leadership principle that I'm super passionate about. AI leadership or AI mentorship award was given to me by VentureBeat, and I was listed as a top influencer in voice. So I feel like, if I have anything to say, at least hopefully you'll find it useful. But what I'm about to show you is really why I got these awards, is that my experience, and more specifically the skills and applications that I've built, they did something we hadn't done before, and I saw a result that we hadn't seen before, and I actually was quite successful in the early days of Alexa. So I want to share a little bit of that with you. But voice really will be, I say voice will be everywhere. Voice kind of is everywhere now. And then I say, well, it really isn't. So if you're an Alexa person, I have 133 voice activated, I have to be careful what I say, voice activated devices in my house, which means that I have a bunch of light bulbs, probably 75% of my devices are light bulbs, or light fixtures of some sort, and blinds and things like that, smart home devices. But I do see a voice being everywhere right now, but I'm probably the 1% of the 1%, right? I don't see a whole lot of people doing that level of adoption, obviously, because they probably haven't been in the space that long and are just getting started. But I do, however, see a world where voice is this ubiquitous interface. And every time I see software built, every time I see some technology created, I don't think it's right to not have a voice interface, because of all the people that can't use the devices, can't use a Surface Book or a laptop or an iPad or a smartphone. I have two of them that live in my house. My daddy's in his 70s, and he just can't use devices the way he used to. And not because he's 70, but he actually got hit by a car in 2014 and suffered some significant cognitive, like brain damage in that accident. He just can't function that way. Can he use his voice? Absolutely. He talks to Alexa every single day, many, many times a day. But if he had to go to a phone to do those things, if he had to go through some app, it wouldn't have been the same experience. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I would have been doing that work for him. And my other reason is that my son, I have a son, he's 15 now. He's my firstborn, was born with Down syndrome. He also just limited by his ability, his dexterity to manage a computer interface, a window, mouse, drop-down menus, buttons. But being able to just talk and use his voice, that has really changed his life. But it's more than just Alexa and skills. And so I'll use this as an opportunity just to share with you, I am a futurist, my vision of the world. I want to take a few seconds, but you should know, or I hope you will enjoy knowing kind of what I want the future to be. So you can imagine, right, Alexa is now available for your car. There's Alexa Auto. We also have CarPlay, and we have, all sorts of stuff. There's another one, Android Auto or something. I don't know. You guys could probably correct me in the thing. I'm not an Android person, but there's lots of different car interfaces now. There's some challenges and friction associated with using your interface in your car to do anything meaningfully that would allow you to start a conversation in your car, for example, as you're going to work or as you're, driving to the grocery store. And as you're having this conversation with this device, be able to then, let's say, for example, it's Tuesday, right? And you're like, oh, Taco Tuesday. And you want to say, you're in the car and you're like, hey, Alexa or Siri, whatever, whatever agent you're talking to, it's Taco Tuesday. And when you say that, it knows what you mean. It knows to go to Instacart or to Amazon Prime or to Amazon Fresh and order exactly the same thing it gets you every Tuesday, because you forget to order this stuff every week. And it has it ordered and on its way to you while you're in traffic, which actually can happen today in Seattle. It doesn't happen worldwide, but it is possible. So then you get home, and wouldn't it be great if it knows it's Taco Tuesday, it knows what you just purchased, and now it can contextually just chime right in, right? It being this virtual assistant can be like, hey, by the way, it takes you 20 minutes to dice onions. You probably should start now if you want dinner done by 6:30, right? Like, it knows about you based on the conversations that you have and the state management that it's able to do across different devices, right? Across being in your car, maybe on Google, and being in your kitchen on Alexa, and even, managing your house or going to the office. Right now, that experience doesn't really exist where you could have a conversation and it will scale across all available assistants. But that's the customer's dream. And honestly, I think it's Jeff Bezos's dream as well, is that when you say something, no matter where you are, you could start a conversation in your house or in your car or at work. And as you move throughout your day, regardless of the assistant you talk to, the brands that you talk to, the agents that you talk to, meaning the travel agent or the scheduling agent or the, whatever it is, they are able to kind of be at your beck and call regardless of the virtual assistant. That's the goal. Because customers don't care, right? Customers don't care if they're on Google or Alexa. They just want it to work. And I truly think that us as engineers need to be cognizant of that, so we build better experiences. And those experiences may not be just Alexa skills. I think that it really extends to every web application and mobile application out there, right? How do we make sure that the information I'm gathering in a web application gets stored in some state management system that's available to my Alexa skill? So when I go to Alexa, it already knows what I talked to about, when I was on the train and using my phone and I couldn't speak. So I think it's a really big vision, and I encourage developers to always embrace this, but it's hard, and we're really far away from it. So it's hard to commit that much time and effort, but it will be worth it, and we will get there. Just how fast we get there is kind of dependent on us, the developers, and how quickly we develop those examples and those resources. So I do want to talk to you a little bit about Alexa and the ecosystem and all those pieces. If you already know some of this, hopefully it'll be a nice refresher and not too boring for you. But many people don't really understand kind of what happens underneath. I've been talking about Alexa for 5 years now. And every time I talk about it, people are always like, oh, right, I didn't realize that those were models that, are being handled under the hood of Alexa. And so I always like to talk a little bit about how that works. Now, Alexa is a cloud service, and that cloud service is available on all of these devices. And there's two sides of that cloud service. One is accessible through a set of APIs called the Alexa Skills Kit, or ASK, or Ask. And then the other side of it, which is actually where I started on the devices side, is how can we embed that same service, right? Same APIs, same ASR or speech recognition, same natural language understanding, same models, but instead I want it embedded in a device. And if I'm embedded in a device, maybe I don't have to say Alexa. Maybe I press a button instead. Or maybe when I open the door of the microwave, the ASR kicks in and starts listening to what I'm saying. So there's different trigger mechanisms as opposed to a wake word that can come into play with a voice service. But both sides are important, right? One is device-based. So to give you an idea on Hackster.io, I've got a bunch of projects, but one of them is I built a voice-activated watering plant system for my office, which is silly because I still have to fill this container full of water in order for the silicone tubing and DC motor to chug, put water into the little plant. But I can say it with my voice, which I think is cool. So I built that. Schematics are on Hackster. And then I also built a Negroni maker, which actually is a bartender because it can make a bunch of drinks. But Negroni happened to be the thing that took off. People were super interested in learning about. And the main reason why is because it's 5 bottles of liquid pumped by 5 different things. And I wrote a bunch of Python, and that Python was kicked off by an Alexa skill through an event queue. And so when I talked to Alexa, Alexa put a message on a queue. The message got to my, Raspberry Pi, which then distributed it to my robot little DC motors and poured me a Negroni whenever I wanted it. It took like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is a really long time to wait for a drink, by the way. But again, I didn't really do it to make a drink. I did it because it was fun use of the technology, and it was a way to learn. So if you're interested in that side of the house, of the AVS or devices side, I encourage you to look at some of the projects that are out there and replicate them yourself. We do a pretty good job of documenting, like, here's all the ingredients, meaning all of the system resources that you need and all the, the hardware that you need to do some of those projects. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is really much more around the skills kit, right? And how do you build skills for Alexa? And I did both. So I love the hardware side. I think it's fascinating. I love it when I can say something and hardware starts doing stuff. But I also think that applications are important as well. And I just saw something come in and my chat went away. So I'm going to try and see if I can figure out. Oh, darn it. Okay, well, it went away. So I will try and find that. Hopefully everything is good. And it was just a question that I can get to in a moment. So the other side is the skills kit. But one of the things I have always done is use these two together, right? So I would build an Alexa skill that triggered Alexa voice service that talked to robotic, hardware. And I like that idea. I like the idea of building a skill that has a bunch of functionality, one of which triggers hardware, as opposed to having a bunch of skills that trigger hardware and a bunch of separate skills, like even in the same brand, that do cool things like, for example, with my dishwasher, or more importantly, I just got a new microwave that is voice activated. I might want to ask it, certain things like, how long does it typically take to make popcorn? And that's just a question that they probably have in a bank somewhere that they could just tell me. And I don't need to go to a separate skill for that. I should be able to use the same skill that's going to then, when I say make me popcorn, it knows to do that. It's sensor-driven microwave action. It's so awesome. You should look it up. It is on Amazon. If you are in the US. I don't know if it's global yet, but really interesting. So imagine, now this is kind of where we're at, right? Where if you say the word Alexa, right, all sorts of devices can now turn on. Everything from your Kindle to your iPhone, your watch. There's now Android-based watches that are available that have Alexa built in. Of course, your Echo devices, your smart speakers of any kind, because you can embed technology within them. Cameras, refrigerators, so much. And so skills are really just a mechanism for enabling this communication and giving even more data or more functionality to these applications. So here's just a list of some of these cool things companies have done. If you're interested, a lot of this is smart home, but I always want to, this is cool, but this is what I did. These are, oh no, it's not here. Maybe it's after this, but I will show you a list of skills that I built, hopefully, if I remember to put them in here and save it. But I'll show you a list of skills that I built. If not, I'll just go into the store and show you really quick. But before I do that, I think it's important to understand how the Alexa system works. So let's just talk through that really quick. And I'm just gonna once more. Yeah, I don't have any way to, oh, there we go. I see it. All right. I just want to check on chat and make sure we're good, but I can't see the chat from here. I guess I'm not allowed to chat while I'm talking. Let's see. Yeah, I can't see it. So I don't know, Thomas, if it's a question, just interrupt me and be like, hey, we got a question. I'm more than happy to hear that. So yeah.
The question is, what platform is the Project Replant watering? My sister could use that.
Oh, what platform? Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, what platform?
What platform? Well, so it's actually like I built it in Python and it runs locally on my system. So, but you can build it. Maybe you're asking about where I actually put all of the information. So it's on Hackster.io, and there are a bunch of people, a bunch of Alexa devs that have built versions of this thing. I built it once, it worked, and I kind of walked away from it. But there are some pretty elaborate versions. But we'll actually, I'll throw the notes into the chat. But Hackster, HACKSTER.io. And yes, but yeah, it's really cool. However, you have to build it for her. So if you really like her, you can build her one of those skills. It's pretty fun. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so of course, I don't know how much you know about conversational AI. So again, forgive me if like this is redundant for you. It'll hopefully be just a fun review. But a user rate says something like, "Hey Alexa, whatever," or "Okay, Google," or whatever. It's the same regardless of the platform. There has to be a wait word that triggers. This is always what people are concerned about, right? This process right here is what keeps 3% of potential smart speaker buyers from buying a smart speaker, because they're worried that it has to be constantly listening to be able to detect whether or not that wake word was heard. And that's of course true. It does. However, there is not enough space in the world to hold all of the data. We literally have billions of utterances coming into the system, and that's just for Alexa, let alone Google. Just think of how data centers, like, they would implode with that much data. So that information is actually held anywhere. It's loaded locally, and then so the actual act of listening is not a big deal, but still, it's a fear, and we should address it, or at least be aware of it as a consumer and as a developer of this technology. So as soon as you say something to Alexa, a stream is created, and it literally starts streaming the second that Alexa is recognized. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys remember all of these interesting and fun stories of when people would have Alexa on, like, it was in the early days where Alexa would be on TV and there'd be a commercial or there'd be a news broadcast and somebody would say, like, Alexa, and all the Alexas would trigger, like all of them, to the tune of millions on occasion, or on one occasion. And so when that happened, well, it's just proof A, that the word Alexa will trigger these things. But just to give you a little inside scoop, when that happened, we instantly created, right, modified the algorithm that made that enablement selection to say, if more than 400 devices activate simultaneously, don't do whatever it's asking, right? Because what are the odds of that? And that number kept dropping as more and more of those activities occur. So even now, though, because hotels are investing in Alexa devices, hopefully they'll be okay in this terrible crisis, but hotels have invested in the technology, and so they actually do have hundreds of devices that they'll do something to at one time. But for the most part, 400 is a pretty good number. Like, if it happens, you should be very sure that what you want to happen is happening across all those systems simultaneously. So once that happens, the auto stream comes up, Alexa takes over. Alexa has two models that it uses, that it has now thousands of engineers working on. They are two completely separate, friendly teams within Alexa. One is the ASR team, which is a speech recognition team, and the other is the natural language understanding team. I spent time on the NLU team launching. I basically built a team of technical program managers, and our job was to work with the engineering managers to deliver 4 languages for Alexa. And that was kind of like, at the end of that, I was very tired. My kids forgot my name, and I decided not to work there anymore. It was awesome, though. It was a great ride, but that was the end. But ASR, speech recognition, is the process that takes your speech in, right, and basically analyzes what you said and turns it, you might know this term, speech to text, right? So it takes your speech and turns it into text. This is really important because as a developer on Alexa, you never get their speech. You never get like the MP3 of them speaking. You only get the text that the ASR engine handed to NLU. And even just a few years ago, those early days of Alexa, we didn't even get the text. We got an intent mapping that NLU made before it even handed it to us as developers. Now there's ways to work around that, and you don't have that challenge. You can actually get what the user said in text delivered to you in an attribute of an object. But before, it was very difficult to do that. So a user says, hey, Alexa, opens, it starts screaming whatever is said after that. ASR takes that speech, turns it into text, then hands that text to NLU, the natural language understanding model, and NLU then determines, well, what do you want to do? So imagine what happens, like if you talk to Alexa today, what would happen? You'd have to, like, what if I'm asking a question about, like, how much does the sun weigh? My daughter asks this on a daily basis and laughs every time. How much does the sun weigh? That's like a fact. So I'm not going to go to skills for that. I'm going to go to EV, which is an internal system for answering Q&A. I don't know if you guys remember EV from the old Android days, but anyway, it was an early acquisition for Alexa to do that Q&A work. So there's like knowledge and Q&A that happens that is not skill-based, but that navigation has to happen, and it has to happen in milliseconds, right? But by the time it's our skill, we know what they want, right? Because they've actually had to use what's called an invocation phrase. And that invocation phrase is literally the words that map to our skill. It's probably one of the biggest challenges of building Alexa without really knowing what it would become. Because I remember hearing Jeff Bezos say things like, we don't want to build this command and control system, right? We want it to be contextual. We want people to say whatever they want. But that's really hard to do, especially at the beginning, and especially not having a bunch of data. So that's certainly the vision of all voice interfaces, is that they're natural and you don't have to know what words to say to launch a skill. But it's taking a long time to get there just due to the, beautiful chaos that is human voice and human interaction. So I can't actually see this, so I'm going to move it over. So once that happens, and NLU says, oh, so one of our skills is 1 minute mindfulness. It was the first skill, mindfulness skill on the platform. It had a single invocation word, which was mindfulness, which is no longer allowed. But you could just say, Alexa, open mindfulness, play mindfulness, start mindfulness, and my skill would kick off. It did very well because it had these certain characteristics. One was that it was a daily use skill. People would come to it every day, sometimes more than once a day. It averages actually 2 times per day at 8 in the morning Pacific time and at noon Pacific time, which I thought was really interesting. But once that happens, once a user says, hey, Alexa, open mindfulness, right? Audio stream opens, it goes through ASR. ASR turns that speech into the word mindfulness, and open, which is the invocation phrase that says, oh, you're a skill. It goes to the skill, and literally it's like a button click. It's going to execute whatever code I have there, whatever code I have. So what I often encourage people to do is look at the code you've already got running. If you've got a pretty sophisticated website, this just becomes another way of invoking that same functionality. It's a little, it still requires design. It requires conversational design, things that we've never thought about before, really, as app design, app developers or web developers, but certainly very useful and critical really now. And so then it hits your code does its work, returns back, and the reverse happens, right? It goes from being text, and it goes through TTS, and text speech turns it into speech, which is completely automated. There's no human element to that. It's not like we had someone record a bunch of, pieces of words, and then that text to speech is read back to the customer. There's also a command in the API that allows you, at the same time the voice is returned, you can also send back a card. And that card, imagine if you're talking to a device with a screen, or you're talking to an old school Echo cylinder, but you want to send a card. One of my other skills is daily affirmation. One of the very first affirmation skills, did very well for a very long time. And its job was to deliver you an affirmation that you'd use for the day. However, hearing it, you're like, great, wait, what was that? Can you repeat it? So the first piece of functionality I had to update was the ability to repeat. And then the second thing was they wanted it actually in their phone or on a screen, so they could reference it throughout the day. So having, a daily use skill, and then also having a way for people to actually remember the thing that they asked about or did in some kind of screen was also really, really beneficial. This is where the term multimodal became popular, is that we realized voice is awesome, but it's typically not enough. If we can have multi-modalities like voice plus screen, why wouldn't we? We're not trying to make the screen obsolete or the keyword obsolete. Like they should be both and constantly working together. Here they are. So these are this is not an exhaustive list. And this picture was taken quite some time ago. So excuse me, a lot of these numbers probably have changed since then. I would definitely, actually, I know some of them have. But these are some of the most top performing skills for sure. I do get developer rewards. So if you did not know, you can get paid by Amazon to develop skills that are engaging. The more engaging they are, the more Amazon pays you. However, they don't share the algorithm that they use. They might be different every month. I don't know why it's different. I don't count on it. But every month I get an email that says, you got rewards. And they, tell me how much it is per skill. And I'm like, oh, cool. How did you even come up with that? It's somewhat correlated to my usage and my user base. I had over 1 million users of my skill, unique users anyway. I have a lot of skills. I have over 100. I built over 100 skills. 40 skills are on the platform. About 10 of them are very popular. And I feel like that's kind of like an iPhone app thing, right? Like build a bunch and maybe some of them will take. So I feel like skills have that same kind of situation. But I just showed these to you just because there's something that most of these have in common, and they are a daily use. I can't encourage you enough, especially on something like Alexa. How can you do something that can be part of someone's morning routine or afternoon routine or evening routine? That will definitely encourage people to use your skill more often. Another thing was actually, I think all but one of these skills I went to Google Trends and looked at what was trending in the industry that I was in. I don't know if any of you know me, but I'm a mindfulness person. I'm a big fan of mindfulness and yoga and kindness and empathetic leadership and mindful leadership. So that being said, all my skills ended up being around that. So I went and looked at Google and I'm like, Google Trends, what's trending right now? And these words were trending and I created skills based on that. So call me like an old school marketer, I guess. But I think that's a big part of why they were successful as well, as I mapped it to what people were already searching for. So as the Amazon Skills Store got created and launched, when people would look for mindfulness, my Alexa skill would show up, which is nuts. Like no other skills were showing up back then. So I had because I combined what I knew about digital marketing with my ability to build Alexa skills, I think that also increased the likelihood of the skills being successful. But this is, most skills never even get a single review. So if you see a lowly skill, no review, like give it a positive review. Even if it's terrible, like what's one positive review? A for effort, you can say. But there's so many skills out there that get no attention or love whatsoever. So this is why I encourage you just a little bit of these tiny tips that you could do that would bump you up, right? As far as getting your name on the map and getting people to use them. Other things that I did to encourage success was this concept of crawl, walk, run. And so what this means is I use this term called minimum remarkable. Let me check my time. I'm still good, I think. You let me know. I presume you'll tell me. But minimum remarkable product, which some of you might know this term MVP, like minimum viable product, but in voice that doesn't work. So what I found, the third thing that I did, and that's all, I have 3 tips for you. The third tip is how can you create something that is amazing and then just do that one thing as your skill, like one amazing thing, not one like this will work, one viable thing that, like a bare minimum thing, but find something that is magical for the users. So what I ended up doing for many of the customers that I ended up building skills for is I went to their website and I looked at their click trails, like literally looked at how many people were clicking what resources in their menu, what did they need to do? And then I looked at what were the top things people were doing on a website. Now this was back in like 2014. So if you remember back then, it was very hard. The one use case I remember us fixing was it was very hard to get routing numbers. Now it's super easy because everyone's got these little chatbots. But back then, you couldn't get a routing number for a bank. You had to go like 3 pages in, 4 pages in, 4 clicks, 5 clicks. It was unnecessary, and lots of people needed that information. So we have this term called top level intent. How do you take that content, right? How do you take that thing that somebody wants to do that's 5 levels deep and bubble it up so that they only have to say one thing or type one thing? And so that's why I call it a minimum remarkable product. Like, find that thing that is a cross section between the most commonly asked thing along with a thing that's really hard to get to. Routing numbers was commonly asked for and hard to get to, and it was a perfect use case. And then you just do that one thing. You just voice activate that one thing. You get users excited, and then you add another thing. You evolve it. So that's the idea of crawl. Like, you find one minimum remarkable feature and you build that out. Then you expand on it. You start adding color and features and resources to that. And then, of course, our goal is that you eventually have a fully functioning, well-rounded scale with lots of, and you'd be right where I mentioned at the beginning, you'd be in this contextually available place. So my vision of running is that I have a single code base. I use like Microsoft's bot framework. I use and they have a new tool called the Composer where I can build this bot, right? That serves as a foundational component of my Alexa skill. Guess what? Now it doesn't just need to be Alexa. I build the bot, the functionality, the work that I want it to do. And now I have channels. Alexa's one channel, Google's another, Google Assistant is another channel, Teams is another channel, Slack is another channel, WhatsApp is another channel. I have all these different mechanisms for distributing. Guess what? They all come back to the same single code base. So I don't have to worry about like, oh, that user started a conversation on WhatsApp. How do I get the data that they just saved there over to my bot that eventually they're going to use when they talk to Alexa in their kitchen? If you use a single code base, that becomes possible, but it's a totally different way of thinking about it. So thinking about that single code base from the beginning and then building one little thing and evolving it, I think that was another reason why a lot of the skills that I built for myself and customers were really successful. So I mentioned just in this, I'll give this deck to you. It's actually on slideshare.net, so you can find it there as well. But I just have a couple examples so that if you're reviewing this later and you're like, oh, what did you say about that? I just threw in some words to help that out. Here is, from a design perspective, something that I did not know when I started and I learned the hard way, which is around where you spend your time building out a project. So let's say you all by yourself want to build a skill, or you have a really cool idea and you want to start a company, whatever it is, or you've already got a company and you think you want to build a skill for your company. This is critical. And it's the idea of design, right? Building, there were no such thing, or I should say that there were conversational designers, but they weren't like mainstreamed in our, engineering teams. At least they weren't in the engineering orgs that I've been in. And so building a conversational design was not a native skill set that we had. However, one thing that I did do, which I now see is a practice in voice designing, is like I literally just said, okay, you be Alexa, you be customer, and just have a conversation and I'll write it down. I literally was in a room with a very prominent customer and we were building a new skill, and they did just that. And we wrote on big Post-it white easel, white Post-it paper in the easel that sticks to the wall. And we wrote all across the wall, all different dialogue flows, and they were authentic. But it wasn't just that one, right? We would do that, and then we'd do it times 100, right? We'd get a beta test group, and we wouldn't ask them to test a skill. We wouldn't say, hey, go to Alexa. We'd just say, have a conversation with me on the phone. And we document all of those conversational flows, look at them all together, and then identify what those common layers were. And also think about diversity, like what happens when somebody doesn't say exactly what you want. So the benefit of taking that single conversational flow that we would have gotten in a conference room during a workshop and scaling that to 100 is that you start to see all the different ways people say things. I remember working with a financial institution, a very big one, with their first Alexa skill, and someone used in one of the user tests, they said buckaroos. Literally, like naturally, the word buckaroos was used in a transactional context. And, it's kind of like when you're behind the FBI glass and you're like, what? what just happened? Did they really just say that? And so, but we added it to our utterance because certainly if one person randomly out of 100 says that, there's probably gonna be more. There ended up being 7,200 utterances that we captured just for the transactional support of that bank, which is a lot, but it was diverse, and we collected diverse information, and we created a model that respected it. So I'm pretty proud of it. But you'll notice here, 50% of the work is spent in this early conversational design phase. Then you build it. Honestly, to me, granted, I guess I don't know, unique, but I feel like the tech part is the easier part, because I learned Node.js. I was always a Java developer. I ended up building many skills in Java, but Node.js was the language of choice for Amazon Alexa for the first few years. And so I was like, oh, I guess I better learn that. So I learned Node.js in order to build skills for Alexa because I was working for the team and kind of advocating for the use of that tech stack. But then I started building skills in Python. And so the tech actually is pretty easy, or I shouldn't say that, maybe it's simple. Like there's not a whole bunch of work you have to do, especially now with the concept of serverless infrastructure or serverless architecture, the fact that you don't have to worry about provisioning app servers or web servers or scaling or any of that, right? It's just you get to build, on Microsoft, their functions, and on AWS, it's Lambda, but it gives you the ability to not have to care about the nuances of the infrastructure, which is super time saving. And many, I would say 90% of Alexa skills are built on a serverless infrastructure. But once you build it, then deploying it is a little bit challenging. It doesn't need to go through certification because it sits on Alexa, and kids use Alexa, and aging parents use Alexa. It's important that Alexa kind of brains in who uses it, what they're using it for, and of course, does it actually work and do the thing you're saying it does? And so there is a certification team. There are humans that actually certify your skill. They continue certification through the life of the skill. I have a skill that I built that I totally forgot about, that Amazon certification wrote me back, and they're like, so we're just wondering if you even know, like, is the skill even working? Or they detected it wasn't working because I deleted a instance of like an EC2 instance and happened to be running there back before I thought to use Lambda. And I forgot, so it broke the skill, and I didn't even know it, but nobody was using it anyway. But it's just funny. But it reminded me, or made me feel good about the fact, like, oh, well, Amazon's keeping track of this stuff. So they do spot check your skills and make sure that you are still holding true to the promise that you made when you submitted your skills for certification. So that is something that you need to plan for. It's not instantaneous. It can take up to a week. It also is dependent on timing, how big the team is at the time, but they do have follow the sun support. So if you have a skill and you want it certified, you can submit it at midnight, and you'll get people somewhere around the globe will get an email to help certify your skill. So this is kind of the plan. I just wanted to really focus on, design is so important. Sitting down and doing conversational or dialogue flows, incredibly important. It will make or break your skill. Literally, there are tens of thousands of skills that have zero conversational design in them. And that's just because we built a bunch of skills early on that we just didn't know either. But now we know better. Now you know better. So hopefully that will be something that you can do. Now, for those of you who are very keen on Python and R, but not so much understanding or wanting to dive into the depths of learning a new set of APIs in ASK or the Alexa voice service, AVS, there is a no-code way to build skills for Amazon Alexa. So I did want to mention it to you kind of as like, I'll push you out of the nest, start with one thing, build a skill and get it live. You could do it literally within 15 minutes right now. Right after this. But blueprints are a way of building skills that we've realized are templatized. So they actually are based on many of my skills. There were no blueprints when I started, but many of my skills, you'll notice, look, there's very similar templates in there that match the skills that I just talked to you about. So they're not the same, I hope. I don't think it's the same code, but it is very similar in nature because they're super popular. So you can go to blueprints.amazon.com. You can sign up. They will host it for you. They'll host your skill. But most importantly, you don't have to write the code. You get to just work with like the the process of building a skill and publishing a skill before we take on the nuance of the variables and objects associated with when ASR hands you an object, when it comes to NLU and NLU hands you an object, and the differences and how to manage state. And, right, it can get complicated, especially as we think about presentation. There's lots of new APIs that are available. And so with all of the new stuff, it might be nice just to start with something that's manageable and not uber technical. However, because I know some of you are like, man, I want to build it manually by myself, there is my favorite place to go. There is a skill repo on GitHub. I think it's just called Alexa, Amazon Alexa. And you can just Google it, but make sure it's, of course, verified by Amazon, that it's the Amazon verified account. There's lots of people who have forked stuff from these repos, so just be careful. But you'll see based on the traffic, you can make sure you have the right verified account. But they put all of these lighthouse skills that you can build. You can take them, rebuild them as is, or you can take them, rebuild them, combine them, evolve them. But there's lots of really great, that's how I learned. I didn't learn, they didn't have blueprints, they didn't have no code options. So I learned by basically building my own, and then seeing my friend's skill and looking at their code, because all of us, including all my skills, are all on GitHub. So you can go in and be like, oh, that's pretty cool that you did that there, and take that little piece and use it. And, obviously it's nice to attribute, but, I don't ask for much. But Blueprints is really cool, and it'll allow you to get started pretty quickly. So I did want to leave a little bit of time for questions, and or not, but it's up to you, Thomas, how you want to.
No, we have questions.
Okay,
can you see them, or do you need me to read them out?
I think I can see them in the Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can you read the name of the site? Uh-oh, that was it. Oh, just now. Okay, so I am answering this. I'm going to type the answer in too. So I think it was Blueprints, right? Is that the one they're talking about? Oh, maybe, I don't know. I'm going to put it in because it was just asked. And if this isn't the right one, you mentioned, the one besides Blueprints. Oh, that's GitHub. So actually, I'm going to just go there live really quick. Alexa, yeah. It's always dangerous to live Google something. It was Alexa. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll be pretty quick, and we'll show up first. So, and there's lots of different channels. Let me move this over. Yay, there's Alexa GitHub. That looks like it. So I will throw this in there. Oh, that's pretty easy. GitHub.com/Alexa, but I'll put it in there. And this is where the code is. So you can see right here on this page, like here is the SDK for Node.js, but right under it, this is the fact skill. So if you remember, my daily affirmation skill was literally the fact skill, and I changed it. I mean, I had to modify it because my users kept asking me for different things. Like they're like, oh, I want a daily repeat, and I want to go 360 days without a repeat, and I want to get rewarded if I, get an affirmation for 7 days straight. And so I evolved mine. But this is how I started. I literally started with exactly that repo right there. I cloned it and or forked it. Cool. So let me put that in here and hit send. All right, awesome. So some more questions. Oh, this is cool. It sounds like you guys might have liked it. Okay. Okay, the audio quality seems to have gone down. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope that's not the case anymore. Where is the workbench or lab where you can build and test your skills? Oh, great question. I'm going to go there also. So this is developer.amazon.com. And I will also put this in there. And once it comes up, you'll see Alexa's pretty prominent. There are other things you can build for, but Alexa is on this list. And when you click on it, now granted, it might automatically sign me in. Let me, I guess, I don't know where that went. Let me go to my, what was that in? Like chat, I guess? Was that where that question was?
Yeah, in the chat.
Okay, sorry. There we go. So let's see. Sorry, Patrick. I hope it got better. And thank you, Don, for that question. And I'm going to say to all panelists and attendees, there you go. So that is the developer.amazon.com site. And you can see down here, remember I had mentioned the two sides of the fence, right? You can build robotics with Alexa built in. And I'll give you a just super quick funny story. Inside, I was at JPL, which is basically one of NASA's counterparts. And inside JPL, they wanted to build a Mars rover, not the rover, but the one that would go into school. And they wanted to embed Alexa into it. And they ended up not doing that mainly because Alexa wouldn't budge on not naming the rover Alexa. And they were like, we're not going to tell a kid to say, Alexa, ask Rovi to blah, blah, blah. Like they just wanted to say, hey, Rovi, and ask it a question. And Alexa doesn't work that way. So it's kind of sad because I went there and I spoke to them. It was so awesome. I love NASA. And then we ended up not being able to launch the project because they wanted it to be called Rovi. They did end up getting it done. They just didn't do it with Alexa, sadly. But yeah, so you'll click on create new skills and then it'll open up a developer console, which allows you to build new skills, test your skills. It also has an in-browser emulator, so you can emulate what Alexa sounds like. There is my favorite aspect of voice development is called SSML, or the ability to use speech markup to change the nuance of speech, like the intonation. A lot of my skills are mindfulness skills. So if you just let Alexa talk, she doesn't talk very mindfully at all. So I had to add pauses and reflection and make her sound peaceful and contemplative. And the only way I made that possible was with SSML. So it's a little bit of an advanced topic, but for those of you interested, I thought I would mention it. Okay, it looks like, are we good? Oh, I think I answered the blueprints one. And let's see. Oh, I just one by accident. Oh, you said thanks. Okay, no problem, Patrick. Awesome. Cool. I think that's it. Unless there's anything else. I hope you liked it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time, Noelle, and thank you all, everyone else, for attending the talk. The reason we really hold these talks is kind of to just try to inspire anyone to further their learning in any subject that we're bringing tonight or at any night. And anyone who joined us today has done that. So thank you. And also, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment what you thought about today's meetup or what you think about our new Zoom format. Also, please join us for our next talk on May 27th, where we'll be having a talk about art meets science, transformation, data into information, and information into insight. It's a long title. But thank you and have a good night, everyone. We hope to see you then.
Thanks, everybody.